Daniel's shirt was ironed, his shoes were polished, and his resume had no wrinkles, yet his hands trembled. It wasn't nerves, not exactly. It was the weight of everything writing on today. Rent was 2 weeks overdue. His 5-year-old son, Luke, had outgrown his shoes and caught a cold last week that they couldn't afford to treat properly. Today's interview at Morrison Tech wasn't just an opportunity, it was a lifeline. And he was already late. The morning had started with a minor disaster. Luke had spilled milk on Daniel's only tie, and then the old Honda refused to start. The bus was packed, the air stifling, but Daniel squeezed in, clutching his documents like a fragile treasure. He was rehearsing answers to common interview questions in his head as he crossed the park to cut 10 minutes off the commute. He almost didn't hear the cough. It was faint at first, then violent. He turned. A little girl, maybe 4, sat on the bench with wide eyes full of panic, clutching her throat. An elderly nanny screamed and slapped her back helplessly. Daniel dropped his papers and ran. "Is she choking?" he asked, kneeling. The nanny nodded frantically, tears streaming down her face. "She was eating a grape, she can't breathe." Daniel didn't hesitate. He'd seen this before. Luke had once choked on a piece of carrot. Without thinking, he turned the child over his knee and began the Heimlich maneuver, firm and precise. 1, 2, 3 thrusts, and a grape popped out onto the bench. The little girl gasped in air, loud and rattling. Then she cried. Daniel held her for a second, letting her sob into his shoulder. The nanny was on the phone with emergency services, weeping with relief. By the time Daniel picked up his resume pages from the ground, his interview was starting. He sprinted to the bus stop, but the bus was gone. He was 30 minutes late by the time he arrived at Morrison Tech. The receptionist gave him a cold look and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. The position's been filled." He smiled faintly and nodded, blinking fast to stop the tears. "Thank you for your time." That night, Daniel sat beside Luke on their worn couch, watching cartoons with the sound off to save electricity. Luke held his hand and asked, "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Daniel kissed his forehead. "Not this one, buddy. But something better's coming." 2 days later, a black sedan pulled up outside Daniel's small apartment complex. A woman in a cream-colored suit stepped out, her heels echoing on. She knocked. Daniel opened the door, confused and wary. "Heard you were on your way to an interview when you saved my daughter." Daniel chuckled dryly. "Yeah. Didn't make it, though." Grace looked him in the eyes. "I own Bennett Industries. We're always looking for people with courage, quick thinking, and heart. Would you come in for an interview?" Daniel's jaw dropped. You own Bennett Industries? The billion-dollar company?" She smiled. "That's the one." The next week, Daniel walked into a glass skyscraper, his tie neat, his shoes shining. This time, no bus. Grace herself greeted him and walked him through the office. After the interview, she shook his hand and said, "Welcome to the team." Daniel fought back tears. Months passed. Daniel rose quickly, impressing everyone with his work ethic, humility, and leadership. Luke got new shoes and a better school. They moved into a modest but clean apartment with warm water and reliable heating. Grace and Daniel grew close, not romantically, but as friends bonded by an extraordinary moment. Emily and Luke became inseparable. Then one day, Grace invited Daniel to speak at a company leadership retreat. He shared his story, not to boast, but to inspire. He spoke of being broke, scared,